Welcome to Cardano for Everyone, a podcast series from Pasta Steak Pool. Each episode explores something new about Cardano in a way that's simple and accessible for everyone. In the mood for some Cardano magic? Let's get started.
Welcome to our deep dive into the world of Cardano and its extended UTXO model. We're going to break down how it all works, look at why it's such a big deal, and what makes it stand out in the world of blockchain innovation.
And to get a clearer picture, we'll also be looking at Bitcoin's UTXO model, where it all started, and we'll also touch on Ethereum's account-based system as well.
So before we jump into all the nitty-gritty of EUTXO, let's take a step back, right? Let's go back to basics. Bitcoin's UTXO model. A lot of times people try to explain this by using the analogy of spending cash. Could you maybe walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. Imagine you have a $20 bill and you want to get a $5 coffee. You hand over your 20, the cashier gives you $15 and change. Now you have a new set of unspent outputs, right? And each of those outputs can then be used as inputs for future transactions. And that's essentially how Bitcoin's UTXO model works. It's like a chain of digital receipts, if you will.
So what are the main benefits of using this kind of approach?
So the UTXO model, for one, it really enhances privacy because each transaction results in new addresses being generated. And it also allows for something called parallel processing, which means that transactions can be verified at the same time, which can boost scalability.
From what I understand, Bitcoin's UTXO model isn't really known for its programmability. Do you talk a little bit more about that?
UTXO is great for basic transactions. It's not really designed for those really complex smart contracts or the kind of sophisticated applications you see on platforms like Ethereum, for example. And this limitation is because it can't really handle or maintain a persistent state between those transactions.
Got it. Okay, so then that brings us to Ethereum, its account-based model. How is it different from Bitcoin's UTXO?
So Ethereum's model, it's more like a global ledger. Think of a massive spreadsheet, keeps track of everyone's balances, and the structure makes it perfect for these dynamic smart contracts and these really intricate decentralized applications, or dApps as they're often called.
And this allows for more dynamic interactions, right?
Precisely. So this global state, it allows smart contracts to talk to each other directly, update the blockchain's overall state.
Well, I imagine there's got to be some downsides to that approach.
One of the downsides is that this reliance on a shared global state can create bottlenecks. It can cause problems, and often transactions need to be processed one after another to avoid conflicts, and that can really slow things down.
Okay, are there any other concerns with this model?
Yeah, another challenge is potential security risks. So if one smart contract has a vulnerability, it could potentially have a ripple effect, like a domino, or even, the whole network.
Okay, so just to recap here, we've got Bitcoin's UTXO, known for its security, and it has the potential to scale really well, but it's limited when it comes to programmability. Then you've got Ethereum with its account-based model, but it has those issues with scalability and security. So now that brings us to Cardano, EUTXO model.
It's really trying to bring together the best of both worlds. But then it introduces some key enhancements to enable programmability for more intricate applications.
So then how does Cardano's extended UTXO model build on that? What's different?
Cardano, it brings more to the table. It's not just about the value itself. Each UTXO can carry extra information along with it. We call this datums. You can think of it like adding a note or instructions or conditions.
Oh, okay. So it's like saying, okay, this $45, it can only be used to buy Cardano NFTs.
Yeah, those datums, they're what make Cardano's smart contracts possible. It doesn't need a whole separate account system like Ethereum.
Oh, interesting. So speaking of Ethereum, how is its account-based system different from both Bitcoin and Cardano, this UTXO versus account thing?
So with Ethereum, it's a lot like a regular bank account. The blockchain, it keeps track of each account, like its balance and all this activity.
Hmm.
And any changes, like from a smart contract, those happen on this one big shared global state,
Global state.
but it has its drawbacks.
Okay. Like what?
Well, because everything's tied to this one global state, things can get bottlenecked. It's like, everyone trying to use the same ATM at the same time. This can really slow down how many transactions you can do per second and potentially make the system more open to attack as well.
Yeah, I see. So how does Cardano sidestep these issues with EUTXO?
With EUTXO, transactions are more like independent units. They don't need to rely on that shared global state. It's kind of like having multiple checkout lines at a grocery store instead of everyone waiting in one really long line.
Uh-huh.
And this is a big part of why Cardano is so scalable.
So transactions can basically happen at the same time, kind of side by side. It's much more efficient.
Yes.
Okay, so is that where Hydra comes in? I think I've heard about that in terms of scalability too, what it is or how it works.
It basically takes it a step further and lets groups of people process a ton of transactions away from the main blockchain. Kind of like mini blockchains, we call them Hydra heads. Then, those transactions are settled on the main Cardano blockchain periodically, but doing it this way, it frees up a lot of space and processing power.
So it's kind of like if you and I were playing poker. Instead of calling the bank every time we need to settle up after each hand, we just keep track of who owes who and settle up at the end of the night.
And to make sure everything runs smoothly, Hydra heads use something called constraint emitting machines, or CEMs.
CEMs, what are those?
You can think of them like referees, but they're automated. They basically make sure every single transaction that's happening within the Hydra head follows the rules that were agreed upon at the start.
EUTXO makes things efficient and parallel, and then Hydra steps in and moves a lot of the action off the main blockchain, which just makes everything even faster.
Yeah, that's basically the idea. They work together really well. And what's great about this is that Cardano can handle all those complex smart contracts and stuff in a way that's super secure and scalable. And you know how we were talking about Ethereum and its smart contracts relying on that global state.
So there's less chance of something going wrong or some unintended consequence?
And it makes Cardano's smart contracts more predictable, too.
Well, how so?
The outcome of the transaction is determined by what goes into it and the contract's code and nothing else.
So it sounds like a really safe way to handle complex logic.
So let's start with those scripted addresses. You can think of them as smart locks. So instead of just a simple key, you've got this script, a piece of code that defines the conditions for unlocking the funds.
Okay, and then where do those data carrying outputs come in?
All right, so those data carrying outputs, they let you attach more information, what we call stateful smart contracts. They can remember information from previous transactions.
So it's not just like sending money back and forth.
It's carrying forward a history for future interactions.
How does this all actually work in practice? How are these scripts run and managed within Cardano?
So Cardano uses something called the Plutus platform. It's like a separate layer that handles the running and checking of these smart contracts. And it makes use of the features of the EUTXO model. Think of it as a kind of like a specialized engine that runs these smart contracts and makes sure they're working correctly and securely.
So it's like a dedicated space for those smart contracts to run, but separate from like the main part of the system.
Yeah. That provides, another layer of security and control.
Okay, and what are some of the big advantages of this Plutus platform?
So one big advantage is something called contract continuity. So the scripts, they make sure that the logic of a smart contract is the same across multiple transactions. And another key advantage, something called deterministic validation. The results of those transactions, they're predictable. They can be determined before the transaction even happens.
Oh, wow.
And that's really important.
Especially if you're dealing with like finances.
Especially with finances. Transparency and predictability are, super important. And let's not forget the benefits of parallel processing, a key feature inherited from the original UTXO model. So the fact that each UTXO is independent allows for simultaneous processing. It's crucial for getting widespread adoption and handling real-world transaction volume.
Let's look at some real-world applications. In the last segment, we were talking about, how UTXO could be used to build secure and scalable applications, decentralized finance. Can you give us like a concrete example of how EUTXO is being used in that space?
Absolutely. So a really good example is Liquid, which is a decentralized lending and borrowing platform. And it uses the unique features of EUTXO.
So how does Liquid actually use the EUTXO model?
Liquid, it leverages EUTXO's security, deterministic nature, to create a lending platform that's really reliable. So users can deposit their ADA, which is Cardano's native cryptocurrency, and borrow against it. EUTXO ensures that the terms of the loan, they're enforced securely and predictably, so there's less risk of any dispute.
All because of the EUTXO model. What are some of the specific advantages that EUTXO brings to a platform like Liquid?
One of the really cool advantages is that EUTXO lets you create these isolated contracts. So that means each loan agreement is treated like its own separate entity, which reduces the risk of systemic failures.
If one loan goes bad, it doesn't bring the whole system down.
Exactly. It wouldn't affect the entire platform. It's a big advantage for managing risk.
Gives users more confidence.
Yeah, it gives them more confidence.
That the platform's going to be stable. Really important when you're dealing with money. And then we've also got those scalability benefits of the EUTXO model, right?
Because it can process those transactions in parallel, like we talked about before. So that makes it a viable option for a growing user base.
Right. It can grow with the demand. So Liquid is a pretty good example of how EUTXO can be used to power these real-world DeFi applications, right?
It is. And there are other projects out there that are using this model in really innovative ways.
That's a pretty big advantage. It streamlines the whole process.
It does.
And it makes it, less likely that something's going to go wrong.
It reduces those potential points of failure. So for creators, this native support means lower costs and a simpler development process.
And then for users, what does it mean for them?
For users, it means a more secure and reliable experience. It has the potential to really change how we interact with and manage value in the digital age.
It sounds like there's a lot of potential here for Cardano for the UTXO model, right?
Cardano knows how important it is to support developers, so they're putting a lot of resources into providing tools and educational initiatives.
So that you're trying to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah, more user-friendly. The goal is to empower developers to really use the full power of EUTXO without making it too complicated.
Okay, that's good to hear. So to recap, Cardano's EUTXO, they create this platform that's not only secure and can grow, but it's also, adaptable. It can be used for so many different things.
And because of this, developers are using it to build some really interesting applications that could have a real impact on the world. And what really sets Cardano apart is its dedication to scientific research and peer review.
That's something we've touched on a few times throughout our deep dive. Why is that so important, especially for a blockchain platform?
There's a lot of hype in the crypto world, but Cardano is trying to do things differently. They're not just rushing to release new features. They want to make sure that everything is designed carefully, that it's secure and reliable.
So they're taking a long-term approach, building a strong foundation for the future.
They've got this amazing team of scientists and engineers, and before anything new goes live, it has to go through a rigorous peer review process. They want to find any potential problems early on so they can be fixed, and this really builds confidence in the platform. You have to look beyond the hype and focus on the fundamentals. Just like when you're looking at a company's stock. What's the technology like? Who's on the team? How strong is the community? What's the roadmap for the future? And with Cardano, you've got a strong focus on security, scalability, real-world applications, and a really engaged community. Those are all good signs.
Yeah, it's clear that they're building something special. But let's be real, a lot of people getting into crypto are hoping to make some money. How can you balance that desire for profit with being responsible?
The key is to do your research and make informed decisions. Don't just chase trends or buy into the hype. You need to understand what you're investing in and why. And remember, patience is really important.
So it's about finding projects you believe in and being willing to hold on for the long haul.
That's right. Crypto markets can be unpredictable, but if you have faith in the project, you can ride out the ups and downs.
As always, do your research, understand the risks, and never invest more than you can afford to lose. But beyond the financial side of things, I really encourage everyone to dive deeper into the world of Cardano, explore its technology, connect with its community, and see how it's shaping the future. It's an amazing journey to be a part of. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for being part of Cardano for Everyone. We hope you gained something valuable from today's episode. If you'd like to support our mission of making Cardano knowledge accessible for all, consider selecting Pasta from the pool list when you delegate. Every bit of support helps us bring more content to listeners like you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you on the next episode.